1 minute. That is the gap between the two stewards' documents at Spa. One driver got 5 seconds, the other got nothing. Same corner, same afternoon, same team. Cold version first, because the paperwork is more damning than any adjective. Lap 1 at the Belgian Grand Prix, turn 5, Les Combes. George Russell, dealing with a battery problem, drops back into the pack down the Kemmel Straight. Lewis Hamilton goes up the inside at the right-hander, his front left makes contact with the Mercedes, Russell spins into the gravel and his race is over. The stewards give Hamilton 5 seconds, and note mitigating circumstances that reduce what would otherwise have been a 10-second penalty. No penalty points on his license. 8 laps later, the same corner. Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri run wheel-to-wheel down the same straight. The Ferrari sits mid-track, forcing the McLaren the long way round, then eases back toward the racing line to defend the entry. Left rear meets front right. A chunk of the McLaren's floor is gone. The stewards look at it and take no further action. Subscribe before we go further because this is the 4th part of a series, and the last 3 are why this one matters. And put your country in the comments. That question gets more replies here than anything else, and I read them. Now, the man whose job it was to react to both is the same man in both cases, and that is what makes his silence on one of them so loud. Fred Vasseur runs both cars. He does not attack officials. This is the team principal who spent Silverstone describing his rebuild with Hamilton as small stone after small stone, refusing to call any of it a turning point. He is careful to the point of dullness in public, which is exactly why it counts when he moves. On the Hamilton penalty, he moved. He told PlanetF One and other media that it is difficult to put all of the penalties in the same basket, and then he singled that one out. The accident with Russell, he said, was a race incident. And then the line that matters. Asked whether he would do it again, he said he would ask Hamilton to do exactly the same thing. Because he could not go on the curb. That is a team principal saying his driver was right and the stewards were wrong, in public, about a decision that was already final. On the Leclerc incident, from the same team principal, in the same weekend, there is no equivalent defense on the record. There did not need to be. Leclerc had not been penalized. Put the official reasoning on the stand because it is published and it is specific. What was the finding on Leclerc? That car 81 had some overlap on car 16, but that the front axle of car 81 was not ahead of the front axle of car 16, and there was no possibility of completing an overtake from that position. Did the stewards address intent? Yes. They determined that car 16 did not deliberately crowd car 81 off the edge of the track. And Hamilton, was he penalized for intent? No, he was penalized for occupying space another driver was entitled to. 2 different tests then, for 2 collisions at the same corner in the same hour. Yes. And is either test wrong on its own terms? No, that is the uncomfortable part. Because taken separately, both decisions hold. The overlap threshold is written down. The mitigating circumstances on Hamilton's case were applied in his favor, and they halved his penalty. Neither document is lazy. Then the timeline moves, and this is where a closed case reopened. Before the Hungarian Grand Prix, the drivers and the federation held their meeting on driving standards. GPFans reported that the Spa incidents were among the main discussion points, and that after lengthy debate, it is understood the stewards accepted that in hindsight, Leclerc's actions were worthy of a 5-second penalty. I want to be precise about the status of that, because it changes what you can do with it. No official statement has confirmed it. That is reporting from a meeting, not a published decision, and no penalty has been applied. But if it is accurate, then the position is this. The 5 seconds Hamilton served stood. The 5 seconds Leclerc did not serve was acknowledged in a room weeks later and stayed unserved. And this season, for the first time, the stewards have the power to reopen their own decisions on their own initiative when a significant and relevant new element appears, without any team asking. We covered that rule change in the last video. It has not been picked up here either. So here is your vote, and I want it in the likes. You are Fred Vasseur, and one of your drivers was punished for a corner your other driver walked away from. Do you press it and effectively argue in public that your own second car should have been penalized too? Or do you protect the garage and let it go? Like this video if you press it. Comment if you stay quiet. There is no version of that choice that does not cost him something inside his own team. Now the arithmetic, because 5 seconds only means something when you attach it to a result. At Spa, Leclerc finished second, 1.9 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli, and 17 seconds clear of Piastri. Hamilton finished fourth. His penalty was served during a virtual safety car window, which softened it, and he still lost his shot at the win. Russell scored nothing at all, from a car that had been running inside the points before the contact, and Piastri, who lost part of his floor, to the incident that produced no penalty, finished behind the driver who caused it. Then look at what the season did with that. Hamilton went into the Hungarian weekend 45 points behind Antonelli. He came out of it with 2 more penalties, a 3-place grid drop and another 5 seconds, and a 5th place from a car that had run in the top 3. There is one more Spa document that almost nobody mentions, and it belongs in this picture. Ferrari double-stacked both cars under the second virtual safety car. Leclerc got away without a problem. Hamilton did not. He had asked for a front wing adjustment, and in the release he made contact with one of his own mechanics. Ferrari was summoned for an unsafe release, which is normally automatic, and the stewards ended it with a fine rather than a time penalty. So, on that same afternoon, the same team was treated leniently in one hearing and strictly in another, and the driver on the wrong end of the strict one is the same driver every time. Pull back, because this is a design problem and not a personal one. Formula One judges racing incidents through driving standards guidelines that the drivers themselves have complained about publicly, saying the handbook has become too large and that guidelines written as recommendations are being enforced as rigid rules. Overlap thresholds and axle positions are exactly that kind of rule. They give a panel a bright line, which is good, and they also mean 2 collisions that look identical from the grandstand can land on opposite sides of a line drawn in a document. Add a panel of 4 officials that is reassembled at every event, and you get consistency of sanction with variation of interpretation. That is the machine that produced 2 documents 1 minute apart with opposite conclusions. The strongest argument against this whole video is a serious one. The 2 incidents were not the same, and the race said so plainly. Hamilton went up the inside of a car that was entitled to space and made contact that ended another driver's race. Leclerc was defending in a position where the stewards judged the McLaren could not have completed the move. Different geometry, different regulation test, different outcome. That is not inconsistency, that is a panel applying written criteria to 2 different sets of facts. The mitigating circumstances Hamilton received were real, and they cut his penalty in half. And Hamilton himself has said the last stretch of races was bad from his side, and that he takes ultimate responsibility. All of that stands. And it still leaves the thing that nobody has answered. If, as reported, the stewards themselves later concluded one of those 2 calls was wrong, the sport now has a tool to say so formally, and it has not used it. Subscribe before the last part, because Zandvoort is where 3 open threads in this series land at once. Here is the reading. Nobody has shown that anyone favored one Ferrari driver over the other. I am not claiming it. And if someone hands you that conclusion off the back of these documents, they are selling you something. Charles Leclerc did nothing wrong here. He was cleared by the people whose job it is to clear him. What is on the record is narrower. 2 collisions at the same corner in the same race produced opposite verdicts 1 minute apart. The team principal defended one of his drivers in public and had no reason to defend the other. The one who was penalized is the one who has now taken 4 5-second penalties this season. And weeks later, in a meeting room in Budapest, the officials reportedly revisited one of those calls, and nothing happened to it. Whether a sport that can now reopen its own decisions should have reopened this one is a legitimate question, and it stays open. What I cannot tell you is what was actually said in that meeting, because no official statement exists and I am not going to invent one. If the Federation publishes anything on it, this channel will cover it. The Dutch Grand Prix runs from the 21st to the 23rd of August, with a new panel of 4, and Zandvoort has a turn 1 that produces this exact kind of overlap argument every single year. So give me your answer in one word. Same corner, opposite verdicts, consistent or not? Comment it, and I will read the count at the top of the next video. Like it if you want that count, subscribe so you get it. Until the next one.